I thank God that we could join together in this way and to discuss about this topic that is minding our media and choosing the content that we consume in this world today. This is a topic to start off with that is very close to my heart, and I think few of you who have joined the call already. I have spoken in various ways or in different capacities on this topic, and this is something that I thought I wanted to share to formally to a larger audience. And I thank God that this in this platform we are able to take a little time and look at this. So basically, today, I know many of you have joined with different expectations, maybe to see what this is all about. Is this mandatory? Why or what is coming? Maybe you have a thought. So what exactly are we going to talk about today? The gist of it today is I want to try to persuade you. I want to try to make you understand, all of us here understand that media matters. And it is not something that we can optionally speak about or we can take it lightly. But I want to try to convince you that we live in a world where media is of prime importance, and how we treat media has a profound effect on every other area of our lives. Yeah. And then is there a biblical mandate? Is there a biblical principle behind our consumption of media? The Bible was written many, many years ago, before media matured the way it is today. But does the Bible have principles that help us and enable us to choose what we can consume? And then after that, we will look a little bit on, this is a 4 disciplines that I came up with after a lot of thought. And when I meditated on the Word of God, I felt that we can concise it, or our journey with the media, we can concise it into 4 disciplines. And, I would pray and hope that that would help you. And finally, of course, there are some practical tips and helps that I compiled, and we can also get into some discussion time. Okay, so firstly, to start off with, what exactly is media, right? And to speak of media in this platform itself is kind of like it's like a, let's say, almost an irony, right? Because we are currently interacting with each other through the media, right? We are, without media, it wouldn't be possible to have this meeting. So, but is that the media that I'm talking about? Is that what this session is about? Actually, no, right? Today's the name media is like almost like a misnomer. Okay, misnomer means a word that does not really mean. At first glance, it's not what exactly we are talking about. Okay, today I want to speak not about media as journalism describes it, or as secular world describes media studies. Media studies is normally the study of mass communication, study of broadcast, study of all the media that we consume. But today I want to focus more on the actual message that we are consuming. Okay, through all these mediums, through all these platforms that we have available today. So I want you to look at that image that is here, this particular image. I don't know how many of you have seen this image in the past, or you are familiar with this. This actually is a 15,000-year-old painting. Okay, it is one of the oldest paintings that is known that man has produced, and it is simply a carving or an impression of many left hands in a cave in Argentina. Okay, and I want you to start thinking: is that media, right? Does that qualify as media, and does that have a message for a person who sees it many years later? And the answer is actually yes, right? Because anything that we put outside, we express our thoughts, our emotions, the way that we want to view the world, when we express it in a format that does not die with time. I'll repeat that again: in a format that is not limited with time. For example, if I am speaking today, and if I didn't have all this media around me, uh, probably the person who is standing next to me can hear me, and then that's it. The media is limited there. But here we are talking about a mechanism by which one person's thoughts, one person's ideas can actually be reflected many, many years later in time, and also across distances, right? So keeping that in mind, the above picture is what we are familiar with as media, right? You can see video, you can see photos, music, but try to understand or try to think of what are the different forms of media that you are exposed to every day, right? If you just look 50 years ago or 30 years ago, the typical answer would be a newspaper or a news channel, or maximum a radio or something like that, where you use that to get some information. But currently, media is not just what we consume is not just official media, but we also consume media produced by each other, right? We are all consumers of each other's media, and we also create a lot of media today. And in my opinion, or what I understand, is that when we think of media as just some specific set of things that we have in our phones, it's actually a misnomer, and we should understand that it is a misnomer to weigh it properly. Okay, so this is something that I put up to explain from where we came and where we have reached. Okay, I'll not go through this in detail, but the title I put for this is Carving to Craving, right? We started carving on rocks many, many years ago to express our thoughts. And now we have reached a place where we have a craving for media. We have an addiction to media, right? If you think 30,000 BC, many, many years ago, we started carving something, some thoughts into some stones. And if you see, as it keeps progressing, the turn of the 20th century was when the major advances of television and video and radio came out. If you see, camera or photography came around 1830 AD, and towards the end of the 19th century is when you can see film reels, video and radio coming out as major transformations in the world of media. And this word media itself was actually coined in around 1920s when television came out, and when people started studying the impact of this kind of new media on people. And that is when this whole idea of media studies or mass journalism all started developing in the US, when television became mainstream in the United States. So all the dates that I'm mentioning here, they're not really scientific discovery dates, but they are more when it became mainstream, when people started using it properly, right? And if you see, from this whole period in the 20th century, there was nothing much. There was TV and radio, and our parents, most of our parents, most of people who are older than 50 perhaps, just know these two things from their childhood, and some newspapers or print media. But in 1990 is when the real advance happened in media. That is when the internet came up, right? The internet made a big difference in how people consume and create media, because the internet did not just connect a studio to us, it connected us to each other. I want to repeat that. It did not just connect some studio or some stadium in some place to us, it connected each of us to each other, right? And suddenly, we are not just consuming some official news or some official channels. We have become creators. If you see this picture that I put up, we have now not only become consumers, we also started becoming creators. We started expressing ourselves through media, right? Much more unimaginably more than we used to do in the past. And this picture, I don't know how many of you understood, but this is actually VR. This is a new advancement. If we have heard the Facebook's announcement to create the metaverse, right? And we are getting into a place where, into a world where we probably will live inside media, right? All our transactions will happen in the metaverse. And in South Korea, already Seoul has already signed a contract to put all government transactions into the metaverse. And so you don't have to travel to a government office. You can sit at home, and your avatar, your media avatar, can travel, and you can get everything done, right? So we have gone from carving something to being actually inside the world of media so much that we need to understand it's a major influence in our lives today. So quickly moving on, some stats, and I'll not go through everything, but just keep an eye on the first one and this one, right? You will not believe it, but the average time spent by an adult on digital media in one day, in one single day, is 11 hours. Is 11 hours. When we, from the time we wake up till the time we go to sleep, right? It's not even 24 hours. It's probably 13, 14 hours in your day, or 15 hours in your day. 11 of those hours are now spent by a person interacting with digital media. Okay. And I would assume that many of us, with the COVID pandemic hitting us, this has only increased because media has much more had an impact on our lives. And secondly, if you look at this one, this stat, 4.5 billion people are on social media today. What does that tell you? It also tells you that there are 4.5 billion studios in the world. There are 4.5 billion people creating media in the world. It is not just consuming media, they are also trying to create something to influence you, and they have the capability to do that, right? So this is, it's everyone and it is everywhere. There is no escaping this media in the world to come. We have to learn to manage around it or live with disciplines inside it, right? Okay, so now I want to, this is a very interesting article that I caught in Psychology Today. It is, and this person, if you can read this quote, he says like this, it is illuminating to consider how religion and belief have been transformed into seemingly secular activities in the modern world. So he says that what religion and belief used to do for an ancient person or a person living 100, 200 years ago, now something else is actually playing that same role. And what he says is playing that role is, one way to approach this or understand what exactly is playing that role is to identify rituals, right? Religion brings rituals, or people always have ritualistic practices in regards to religion. Now he says to think about our rituals every day, to think about what people do at night in the darkness beyond the demands and the of labor and domestic life. Now I want you to think about this. You have when you finish all the demands of the day, when you have everything done for the day and you want to retire, do you have a ritual? And if you have a ritual, does it have to do with media? Right? A careful thought for the last 1 year would easily tell us that majority of us will identify this ritual as our consumption of media or our creation of media. All of us, when we want to relax, many of us want to take a cell phone or something, and then we consume it, and then we relax ourselves. And that, he says, I can share this article later to a few of you, but he says very profoundly, he says that the impact that rituals have on a person's mind is it completely transforms his worldview. If you have a ritual, if you do a ritual for many, many years, it completely transforms the way you see the world and the way you also react to the world around you, right? So does media matter? Does media matter to us? I hope that you also agree with me that it really does matter, because it is now becoming a ritual that we all practice in our lives. And it is no longer just something that we can optionally speak about in churches or in meetings. We should be speaking about it all the more, much, much more, because it really matters to our lives today. Okay, so moving on. I compiled, I could go to many angles from this place, telling you that media is a major component of our lives. But to cut the story short, I want to really cut to the chase, and talk to you about what I see is the major dangers of media today, right? And I use this word called desensitization as the key term that I want to bring to your notice. I want you to, before we go here, let me just go back. I just want to share one story. I want you to imagine, if you can just raise your hands, how many of you have seen the series Friends, comedy series Friends, right? Maybe you don't have to, if you're not on video, it's fine. You can just reflect upon it. There is a scene, there are many scenes where Friends, you look at Friends as something that you want to relax, right? I used to have a time when Whenever I want to truly relax, I used to watch that series because it was just something that was very, very chilled out to watch, nothing serious about it. But when you reflect upon that movie series, that series, and think about the main themes of Friends, right? The main themes of 10 years of Friends, which they played. What were the main scenes, the main themes of that show? The main themes of the show Friends was purely promiscuous relationships, right? Glorifying, glorifying divorce, glorifying moving in together, glorifying materialism, right? And making a joke about everything that is sacred about a person's emotions, making a joke about everything that is sacred about a person's relationships. And that was what we consumed, and we learned to laugh about. And that is my point here. If you look at the TV shows today, Friends is hardly a problem, right? If you read my first sentence here, we all know this TV series, Game of Thrones, right? And if you look at the number of nude scenes in this very popular TV series, in 67 episodes, there are 82 nude scenes in this TV series. We have come from Friends, which was the hit sitcom of those days, to the hit sitcom of today. 20 years later, we are sitting in a world where the biggest hit in the world today has 82 nude scenes in the total 7 series that played out, right? And I don't even want to speak about other TV shows that are coming up right now, like Squid Game, or a lot of popular series which are not just sexually immoral, but it is also very dangerous to even sensitize our minds to, right? And here another dangerous stat that I could find out, that 73% of modern music, when I say modern music, it is secular music. 73% of modern secular English music has sexual content, inside it. And you cannot sit here and tell me that you listen to secular music and don't listen to 73% of it. It's a false claim, right? So if you listen to secular music and you're listening to me today, then I can surely tell you that you are one of the people who have heard this sexual content or seen this sexual content, right? Secondly, violence. This is shocking to me. I didn't know this stat was actually, I had to check it out 2 times. 91% of TV shows have violence. 91% of TV shows have violence. The actual word in that article was extreme violence, including extreme violence. That means violence that kills, violence that sabotages people's property, right? Thirdly, and this is a very important word that I want to stress today, godlessness. Godlessness. And what do I mean by godlessness? This is more abstract. This cannot be studied through some stat, or we cannot express what is godlessness through some sort of chart or something, here. But looking at each TV series that you have seen, at least you can tell me in your personal experience, haven't you noticed that the majority of hit TV sitcoms and movies and music take God out of reality? They take God out of reality. They don't account for a father, creator God, because once you account for that, majority of the entertainment factor goes away, right? So God is out of reality, and they also go to extremes like mocking faith and religion. I don't know how many of you have heard of the series called House, right? Very popular medical sitcom called House, where a doctor continuously mocks God almost every day in his office. There are sitcoms like Modern Family or The Office, where subtle hints are given to criticize people who have any sort of moral claims in this world. Okay. And finally, another very important thing that I have noticed is mental health and how TVs and movies handle mental health. Have you heard this phrase, depression, right? Depression is real, and I completely have seen the effects of that. But haven't you noticed that people use that word very lightly sometimes? Many of the teenagers, just for a joke, they like to say, I'm going through depression, right? I'm in depression these days. And this, in Malayalam, they used to have this word called desp, right? Something like, you're always in a very sad state of mind. And that is trivialized. That is almost trivialized to a point where people don't know what is real depression. And often the obtuse responses to such mental health issues, meaning that if you have a problem, the characters on the screen often play out obtuse responses like taking drugs or alcohol or getting into promiscuous relationships to get out of their depressed state, right? One of the examples I can give is a show called Californication. It's there on Amazon Prime, and if you read what that show is about, it's about a guy, a writer who's depressed, who has sex to make himself happy. Okay, so and this is a kind of subtle messaging that you keep getting, and then you one day you realize you have a mental health issue, or maybe you are just sad about something, and your reaction to that completely goes into this direction. Okay, so there are some real dangers that is existing in the world of media today, where we are desensitized. Even when I'm talking to you about this, I don't know how many of you can truly feel the pinch of what I'm saying. How many of you can truly feel the pain of having a world where all the major forms of entertainment are Christ dishonoring forms of entertainment in the world today, right? And this is something that we honestly have to sincerely pray and try to ask God for a remedy in this area. Okay, now I want to show this. I don't know how many of you have seen this part. Have you? The young ones may not even have seen, I believe, right? You have heard of it, but there was a time when every DVD or every CD that you purchase on a movie store or some CD store used to have this clearly written on the CD. And that is to tell what kind of rating or what kind of audience is allowed for this kind of movie. Okay, PG simply means parental guidance required. R means restricted, and NC 17 means not permitted for under 17 years old or only 18 and above. Okay, so I want to show, this is a very extensive, very shocking figure. These ratings are provided by an organization called MPAA. This is called Motion Picture Association of America. Okay, they provide these ratings on a voluntary basis. Hear me again. It is voluntary for a film director to go to this organization and say, please rate my movie. It is not mandatory by law. Okay, so the last 50 years, 2018 till until 2018, from the time they started, they gave a stat on all the movies they have rated voluntarily. Again, many directors don't even go to them. Of 30,000 odd films that they have rated over the last 50 years, you can see almost 60% of it, almost more than 60 to 70% of it falls into either of these criteria, and more than almost close to 70% falls in these three, and close to 60% falls from restricted and above. Okay, now you see what restricted means. Restricted means that you can have graphic violence. Graphic violence means blood splitting out of someone's throat, or something very, very grotesque. It can have sexual nudity. It can have proper sexual scenes in this movie. It can have drug abuse. Okay, and that is classified simply as restricted. It is not even disallowed. It is restricted, and you can watch based on your preference. Okay, NC 17, which is strong violence, obscene, and aberrational. Aberrational means weird stuff which should not be shown to psychologically damage you. This also was around 500 films, right? And I am not even showing, by the way, another dangerous rating called X here. We are not even talking about X-rated films. X-rated is beyond this. X-rated is hardcore pornography, which again, as you know, is a worldwide booming industry at the moment. So I'm speaking to you about what we call as safe media. What we call, when I'm just taking a name. When Abel tells me that, bro, I'm going to a movie tomorrow, I don't even think about these things. I don't even question him about these things. Bro, are you watching an R movie? Are you watching an NC 17? How many of us have even thought about this, right? But the fact of the matter is, if you have seen a movie in the last 50 years, there is high probability that you saw any of these content on television or on theater. And we can deny it all we like. We can downplay it all we like. But the fact of the matter is, this is there. It is a truth. And we're just covering it up in churches today, in platforms today, where we don't want to talk about the things that matter to us as entertainment. Okay, I hope I have some let's say thirst from you in this area at the moment. I want to again take you to music. Okay, this is another area where I want to focus your attention on. Music has seen a definite slow fade into very dangerous territory at the moment. If any of you who know what is happening in secular music today can agree with me that it's a very scary place to be as a Christian in the world today because of secular music. If you see, before 1970, Rolling Stones has been one of the biggest or the most famous artists of all time. When they performed, they went on a show in America. They went on a show called the Ed Sullivan Show, and they were asked to perform Let's Spend the Night Together. That was their hit song. They were forced to change it to Let's Spend Some Time Together because the American public did not want to see this lyrics on the screen. This was the state 50 years ago. 50 years ago, this was the state of Rolling Stones, not a small artist, not a small guy who can be pushed around. They had to push around the best-selling album of that day and say, no, we don't agree this lyric to be played on television. It's almost laughable at the moment, right? In 1994, R. Kelly was a hip hop R&B artist. He came with a very provocative, descriptive ode. Ode means he very blatantly explained what happens during sexual intercourse, and he called it bump and grind. And this was played not in any public platform, but it was played in iTunes. It was given as in YouTube. It's available right now in streaming media. But the dangerous thing here is last year, I'm a person who follows music. So I follow Grammys, because in Grammys, those of you who know, even gospel artists sometimes are invited and they have awards in that area as well. It was shocking to me that Cardi B, a female rapper, performed this song called WAP. I don't want to even mention what it contains. It's the very title itself is really grotesque. It is graphically vivid description of a very very vulgar woman's anatomy, and it's nothing much else. That is the main thing. It is not talking about anything else but this. And it is not just that it is allowed to play somewhere in some platform for you to consume. It was shown live on television to thousands of families tuning into the Grammy Awards with no censoring whatsoever, right? So we can live in this world and deny it, but actually our teenagers, the next generation, and at least the ones who are listening to me today, at least at 20s, but you can imagine the children who are in 10s or their teens, when they grow up, what's the world of reality that they're going to grow into. It's a slow fade. And let me just add one more thing here. These songs, any of these songs, if you search these songs on YouTube, and if you are 18 plus, there is not even a warning shown to you. There is not even a flag shown to you that it has obscene content, right? You all know this. If you consume YouTube or Instagram, almost all the sexual content in it has absolutely no warning whatsoever. It hits you before you know it. And before you know it, you are looking at it and you are enamored by it. Yeah. So please take this seriously. What at least the burden that I carry, that I sincerely am burdened about. I hope that you will carry this and you'll understand that there is a serious issue in the world today with regards to Christians oblivious of what's happening outside, oblivious of the dangers of media. Okay, let me please continue. John Piper tells us in a podcast, and I loved this quote of his. He says like this: what concerns me is what you see as entertainment. What concerns me is what you see as entertainment. To sit and bask at nudity in 50 F words, that's his own terminology, at nudity at 50 F words, in a worldview that is shot through with arrogance to the core, and enjoy it. He asks this question: can you truly enjoy as a Christian a show that shows you nudity, swear words, and a worldview that is purely shot through with arrogance against God, and you're enjoying it? And he says this, he concludes with this: I think today we have to work at not being shaped by the world, because the world has made its worldview so scintillatingly attractive. And that is such a beautiful word that he used there, because The moment we see a scintillating thing, our eyes can't take, we can't take our eyes off of it. And he says that we have to work consciously as Christians, as churches, as youth groups, as any platform that we get. We have to ensure that we work and work and work at not allowing our youngsters to be shaped by the world. And let me not say only youngsters, by the way. Let me say, to be honest with you, I feel if you have a parent who is serious, youngsters are safe. I feel more afraid of the folks who are 18 plus here, who have no restrictions whatsoever. I feel more burdened for us in this area, that we have no restrictions to see anything that is offered by the devil today. And it is so scintillatingly attractive to each one of us. Okay, moving on. And what is now, when we see the world today and when we see this quote by John Piper, think about what is a biblical mandate. Does it prick you? Does it hurt you? Does it burden you to know that this is not the way that you want to live your life, right? The biblical mandate, unlike what people tell about media consumption, the Bible is very clear on how we apply its principles even today, right? If you see that Philippians chapter 4 and verse 8, where Paul asks the church to say, brothers, whatever is true, first thing, whatever is true, and most media is disqualified there itself. Whatever is noble, even more things are disqualified. Whatever is right, completely gone. Whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, even think only about such things. He did not even reach the point of saying, look at it or talk about it. He says, even think only about these things. Let it not even reach your action. Even your thoughts should focus only on things which are truly noble, right, pure, and lovely and admirable. You can't take this verse. You can never hold on to this verse or pin it to your wall, and you can never stream into some streaming platform and watch what you are watching today. You cannot have this verse in your Bible and claim that you follow the Bible and do the same thing that you were doing yesterday on your streaming device. And I want to tell the second thing. It's written, be holy because I am holy. Is there any form of holiness in the media that is in our phones today? If I ask any of you, if I ask any of myself, including myself, to show the streaming video that we have seen on Amazon Prime or on Netflix or on any YouTube platform, and ask you the simple question, is it noble? Is it pure, right, holy, admirable? Can you say yes or no to that question? When the Lord gave Moses directions regarding the tabernacle, he said one thing. In the most holy place, there was a lampstand made of pure gold. And he said that in that lampstand, sorry, can you mute, please? Somebody is unmuted. Yeah. In that lampstand, he says that the light can never go off day and night. The light is never supposed to be off day or night for generations to come. And why did God say this? God did not call the Israelites, or God did not put the most holy place to have momentary lapses of holiness, or to have holiness on Sunday or when you are in church. To God, that most holy place was to be holy no matter what time of day it is, no matter what time of night it is. It was never to be snuffed out. And let me ask you, how much greater is the mandate that we have in our lives? Because we are not just bought from the Egyptians. We are bought from the slavery of sin by the death of Jesus Christ. And now the mandate on us is far, far more greater than the mandate on the Israelites in those days. Right? So now moving on, I want to quote this quote from Abraham Lincoln here. A reasonable response, a very reasonable response to this situation in the world today is simply choosing what you want. It's simply choosing what you want. Do you want something now, or do you want something the most? Do you want something now for relaxation, or is there something that you want more than anything else in your life? Right? And simply that is called discipline. Discipline is choosing what you want, choosing between what you want now versus what you want the most. And keeping this in mind, I want to talk about four disciplines. I want to talk about four disciplines for a disciple. And I'll go through this quickly with simple biblical principles to back me up. What are the four disciplines that I want to speak about today? And I have termed it as a disciple's discipline. I'm not terming this as a discipline of some person who wants to just see what this is all about or check out what this is all concept is about. I'm asking a person who wants to be a disciple of Christ, it is good if we can have these disciplines. And so that, as you can see in this art that I put up here, our goal is to hit the bullseye. If your goal this evening time, as you're listening to me, is to somehow manage to reach this boundary, if your goal is to be here somewhere and you're happy with that, then you may not agree with what I'm going to say. If your goal is that you somehow want to be part of the game, then you're not going to agree with what I'm going to say. But if your goal this evening time is to hit the bullseye, to not have any reservations to what you want in life, then these disciplines will help us, will truly help you to understand and discern what to do with media. And what are they? Simply decide, discern, develop, and dedicate. It simply talks about four steps or four thought processes that you can have, where you go from being confused about this media thing to actually doing or acing the media world, or making all the right choices with respect to your consumption of media. So let's go to the first one. And from here onwards, we only take the biblical principles that apply. Decide. You need to decide now whether you are a disciple of Christ or just a person who finds Christ interesting, or a person who likes to be around people who are disciples of Christ. In the Old Testament, Exodus 32 verse 26, Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, "Who is on the Lord's side? Let him come unto me." And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves unto him. Notice, I love this verse in the Bible because it talks about a group of people who set themselves apart before they had any special calling. At this moment of time, the tribe of Levi, the sons of Levi, had no special calling in their lives. But at that time, when Moses asked, "Who's on the Lord's side?" the sons of Levi gathered themselves unto them. And as most of us who know the Bible know this, that the sons of Levi inherited the priesthood, or the right and the anointing to stand and intercede for God on behalf of men. Right? So first thing is, are you truly desiring to do something more? Are you truly desiring to be a disciple of Christ? And if so, there is a call today that come and if you're on the Lord's side, come to me. And the cost that they had to pay for this choice was very huge. We all know this. They had to kill their own brothers, people who they considered their own neighbors. They had to kill them. They had to stand apart because they decided to stand for Christ. If you decide to stand for Christ today, the cost is going to be very high. In another person, which I really, we all love this character called Daniel. He, in the first chapter, it writes like this: Daniel purposed in his heart. Purposed means he made a clear choice in his heart that I will not defile myself. And if I don't need to defile myself, I need to ask for permission to not defile myself this way. How many of us will truly forget about making a simple choice, be willing to go to an authority and ask permission to not defile ourselves with the things of this world? Setting yourself apart, setting yourself separated for God comes with a very heavy cost. But when you pay that cost, when you give that small investment in the kingdom of God, what God does through your life will be more than you can ever imagine. You can never serve God. The Levites could never have become priests if they did not be on the Lord's side. Daniel could not have been what he saw, or see what he saw, or said what he said, or did what he did if he did not make this choice. That is why it is part of his story. And I want to ask you today, are you a disciple or are you a follower? Let me just go to the next one, discerning. Once you have decided, if you have decided to be a disciple of Christ, the second important thing you need to know is you need to discern what you are seeing around you every day. Otherwise, you will be caught unawares. Why am I saying this statement? I did not put the statement simply over there. When you live your life in this world at the present moment, we are bombarded by media. It's not just our voluntary consumption of media, but we are also bombarded by it. We get hit by media on all sides. And here we have to have the principle that we need to discern each and every moment what is beneficial for me and what is not beneficial for me. How many of us are truly mastered by media today? How many of us can't live without relaxing with one movie in the night? How many of us turn to a movie when we suddenly feel depressed or sad or needing some sort of enjoyment? If you are in that state, then I can tell you that you are actually being mastered by it. You're actually being mastered by something that you find simply for fun, but that thing has already mastered you. And another very important biblical principle is that a little yeast can work through the whole batch of dough, right? It's Paul talking to the Galatians on another topic, but it simply applies very soon after that. He also talks about the acts of flesh and the acts of the spirit. And he says simply like this: you have any flesh inside your body, you have any flesh inside your heart. If your flesh still controls you, that little yeast is enough to work through the whole batch, to work through the whole spiritual condition that you have in your heart today. Please don't be complacent enough to say a little bit is okay. 1 hour a week is okay. Or half an hour a day is okay. Please don't be complacent to say a little yeast is fine, because it will work through your life. It's a biblical principle. It's not just a biblical principle. It's also a mental, psychological principle that anything that you consume on a regular, ritualistic basis will control your life. Thirdly, direct or develop. It's a same principle applies here. This very nice verse, it talks in 2 Timothy 2 verse 20 to 21. Paul tells Timothy a very beautiful principle. He says that in any house that you go, there are many articles, many vessels available. Some are made of gold and silver, some are made of wood and clay. And if you want to be used for special purposes, you have to cleanse yourself from things that are common. He did not say cleanse yourself from things that are impure, bad, wrong. No. Cleanse yourself from things that are common. Just look at any high achiever in the world today. Look at a sports person, or look at a very strong believer. Can you honestly tell me he became all that simply by giving up what is impure, what is bad? No. People become great, people become perfect, people become noble when they give up something not just wrong, they also give up something that is common. They don't satisfy themselves with what is okay for everybody else. Yeah. So I want to say the statement called purity is an acquired taste. When you initially start on your journey of purity, it will be very hard. It will be very difficult. But just like any other sports person, just like any person trains his diet to consume the good things and then later starts loving those good things, it's an acquired taste in our lives where we start preparing ourselves or cleansing ourselves from all the common things, that eventually our whole purpose becomes very prepared to do good work. Good work. So direct your taste and let purity become an acquired taste in your life. And finally, I want to quote this from Oswald Chambers. He's a person who wrote many devotionals, and he wrote this one devotional called The Maimed Life. Maimed life. What does he mean by maimed life? Jesus Christ, in his Sermon on the Mount, he said that if your left hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. And Oswald Chambers quotes that and says, there was never a saint who did not start with this handicap. There was never a saint who did not have to cut off something, who did not have to cut off something precious to that person. And he says, anyone will give up wrong things. If I tell you something is bad for you, you will give it up. It's something selfish. But will I give up the best that I have for Christ? Will I give up what I really love for Christ? If I'm only willing to give up wrong things, never let me talk about being in love with him, being in love with Christ. I know I am bombarding you with things which are probably you can think it is, oh, it's only for perfectionists or somebody who wants to be all that. But to be honest, in Christian life, there is either this or nothing. There is no middle ground. There is no lukewarm in Christian life. You either want to give up your life and follow Christ, or you decide that this is not for you and you just don't want to do this. I want to close this session with this one thing: dedicate. Take a good look at this person. This is some random picture I picked up, but I want you to think about this. There is a big lack of good media in this world today. We are not just consumers. We are not just people who are, when you look at in relation to media, at the moment, you are not just a consumer, you are also a creator. You have the potential to be a wonderful creator. There are many, many platforms out there where you can influence many, many millions for Christ. There are people in the world today who are thirsty for one good word, who are thirsty for one good thought, one good video that can encourage them. And if you yourself, if we ourselves, with all this facility, with all the things that God has given to us, if we start becoming mere puppets in the world's hands, what will happen to people who are sincerely waiting for something good to reach them? Be consumed not with media, but with the kingdom purpose. Every day as you start using media, start looking at this laptop or your phone or whatever is in front of you, start looking at it as a tool, not just as something that will satisfy your urges or satisfy what you want to get from it. Start looking at it as a tool, thinking through this mobile, through this laptop, through what I have with me today, can I do something for God's kingdom? Can I be consumed with that purpose? So that, in Daniel chapter 2, verse 28, this verse I quoted here because Daniel initially purified himself. Daniel initially told that I don't want to follow the ways of the world. But there was one day when the king called him. There was one day when the king called him to stand in front of the king. And he said to the king, there is a God in heaven who can interpret dreams. Tomorrow, if you want to stand in front of somebody, and if you don't have a testimony, if you don't have purity in your heart, you can't tell this statement. You can't share the gospel. You can't do the same things they are doing, laugh at the same jokes, enjoy the same shows. And tomorrow, when they are struggling with something, if you say there is a God in heaven, he may ask you, what difference did he make in your life? And I want to encourage all the young ones today. You have a powerful tool in your hands. Can you make this statement in media? Can you talk about this in media? Can you make a proclamation that there is a God in heaven? Every post that you make, every like that you like, every reaction that you give, are you reflecting that there is a God in heaven? Are you encouraging somebody out there who is earnestly waiting for something good to come out of the media? I want to leave the disciplines with this here, asking you that first you decide who you want to be. Second, you discern and understand where you are most likely to fall. Thirdly, you direct yourself, develop your taste, and finally dedicate yourself for the service of God through the media that is around you. Some practical tips that I want to say today, and you may disagree with me completely here, and I'm fine with that. But I just want to tell you this, just for a month, and I gave this challenge to some people already when I met them. Just for a month, can you do this? Can you think you can live without it? Because the way that you consume, or that you are not mastered by something, is your ability to control it. Can you make a step and take a step outside of these platforms for a while, at least till the end of this year? Purify ourselves, understand where we are, not be so misled by it. And on the bottom here, why I put these green ticks is not saying it is all fine. What I'm trying to say here is each of these applications, you can search it online. You all are more brilliant than me. You can search it online. Each of these applications have controls. You can control what you view through these platforms, right? Put those controls in place and not just freely use it thinking that you know how to control it. Take a step today and control these applications. Control platforms that you can absolutely not live without, and those you can definitely live without. That is these things. Please try to live without them for a while. And when you live without them, what happens is you start to acquire new tastes. And why I put the reading habit here. I don't mean to be a nerd or try to push reading on all of you, but I want to say one reality in the world of media today. One reality is all the beautiful content in the world today, majority of the beautiful content in the world today is only in print, is only in print. And I say it with conviction because 100 years back, 200 years back, media was filled with beautiful things. There was a lot of good content created for God, which we are now losing out because we don't consume this print media anymore. We have lost the habit of reading. And very few people are interested in reproducing this in video or on audio or whatever platform we like to consume. So train your appetite, train your taste to pick up something, pick up an old book that talks about something that you haven't heard about. And I'm telling you, this extra preparation will go a long way in preparing you for the journey that lies ahead. Okay. One resource I want to share to all of you, if you don't know this already, this website called pluggedin.com. Pluggedin.com. It's a website that is run by a Christian organization called Focus on the Family. And they, every week, every latest hit song or TV sitcom or movie that comes out, they publish a Christian review of that movie or music or that song or whatever. They publish a Christian review of it on their website. So if at all you are telling me, Acha, okay, I don't want to do all this, I don't want to delete any of this, fine. But before you consume something, can you try to make an effort to simply browse through here, understand if it is valid, what is there, can I watch it, right? And is it beneficial for me? And this platform is brilliant because I was browsing through, just trying to key in many search phrases. It had almost all the reviews. It could tell me almost any major TV sitcom or movie. It could give me a proper review about it. So consider this. If not this, yeah, this is a website. If not this, think a very simple statement that we all know the statement. Can I watch this with Jesus? Can I watch this not with Jesus? Maybe can I watch it with a believer? Can I watch it with my family? It's a simple answer that you can give yourself before you consume what is bad for you, right? And so just to recap, I want to close here with this. We had almost 15 minutes of a session, and I want to just close with this. Key takeaways. Please understand that media is everywhere. Please don't take it lightly. Understand that media is everywhere, and it has a large impact on our lives. Secondly, discern what is mastering you. Is there something that is totally like making you a slave of that habit, or something that you cannot live without? Then has it seared your conscience? Has your conscience been seared through this activity that you're doing? Thirdly, practice. Learn to delete applications. It's not good for you. Learn to take a step towards a direction of purity. It's difficult. It is uncomfortable. May also feel unnecessary. But I hope I have convinced you about the necessity of it, about the need for it. And if you can practice it and take bold steps, that's one big step towards understanding the calling that God has for you. And finally, growing together. This is something I wish we can do. Can we do something as a youth group, as a youth meeting of WCC, as a youth wing of WCC? Can we hold each other accountable for the media that we consume? Are we able to tell each other what movie we are seeing this week, what sitcom we are following these days, what music we listen to? Can we have a culture where we discuss this and we hold each other accountable to what we are consuming, what we are mastered by? I want to close with this, friends, that there is a big scope in this area for our church to grow together. There's a huge scope that we can all do to help each other in this area. Let's not be judgmental about somebody. If somebody confesses something, it's not a platform to simply blame them or put them down, but let's take a genuine effort towards this direction to grow together, to kickstart a movement where we as WCC start to have, choose the content that we consume. Yeah. With that, I want to close. So thank you. And please, these two lines I wrote down, ponder this with purpose. Don't ponder it thinking about me or, not agreeing with me or whatever, but ponder it with the purpose that God has for you and apply it with prayer, and God will yield a big result in our lives. God bless all of you.